After my graduation, my parents gave the family business to my brother and told me, "You're just good with your hands, not your brain." So I made the hardest choice of my life. I walked away from the 60 unpaid hours I'd been giving every week. My name is Atteka Voss, and this is how I found the truth under Seattle's rain. The Ballard workshop always smelled like rain and glue. Even now at 30, I can stand in the doorway with my grandfather's old chisel in hand and feel like nothing has changed since I was 5. Outside, the Seattle drizzle pressed gray streaks against the window. My work schedule for the week, all 60-plus hours of it, was marked in red ink on the wall. Every job marked Voss priority. That was the family code. Atteka builds, Harper shines. I wanted to turn this damp, neglected shop into a space for sustainable design, to take Northwest timber and make it matter again. Some days it felt like I was the only one who cared if the wood told a story, or if it just looked good for Instagram. When I was a kid, the only time I ever felt seen was in the glow of my grandfather's fireplace. He'd sit me on his knee, a mug of cocoa in my hands, and spread out pieces of oak and maple on the table. Every ring, every scar tells you what that tree survived. Don't ever cover it up. I carved a little wooden dog for him, sanding it until my hands hurt. He looked at it like it was treasure. But the next day when I handed it to my parents, they barely glanced at it before turning to Harper's crayon drawing. "Now that's vision," Mom beamed, pinning his sketch to the fridge. "Atteka is handy, but Harper's an artist." The words stung in a way that never faded. That night, I whispered to my grandfather that one day I'd make furniture with a soul, not just pretty shapes. High school felt like an endless contest I hadn't signed up for. I poured my afternoons into building a chair for the Seattle Wood Festival, sanding and oiling until my arms ached. I won a tiny blue ribbon, best upcycled design. Dad was on a business trip. Mom was helping Harper prep for his first pitch downtown. When I came home with the ribbon, they just said, "That's nice." Harper got a standing ovation for a class project. I got a nod and an order to unload lumber in the rain. By college, I was determined to outgrow all of that. I studied supply chain management at UW, hoping the business degree would get me a seat at the table upstairs. But every holiday, every break, I was dragged back to the shop. When a flood took out our main timber supplier, it was me who spent a week arguing down prices, saving the company tens of thousands. No one outside the family ever heard about that. Harper snapped a photo in front of the finished pieces and got 100 likes by noon. "What would we do without Harper's strategy?" Mom said at dinner, while Dad just grunted and handed me the keys to the van. Upstairs, their office windows glowed over the shop floor, one world where decisions were made, another where I just worked. This morning, I finished hand-planing a walnut table for a Portland restaurant, sweating through my flannel while the rain kept beating down. The client emailed asking me personally to sign the bottom. I forwarded the message to the company email. Later, I saw the reply sent from the Voss company team signed Harper, brand director. My name was nowhere upstairs. Finn was the only one who noticed. He texted after lunch, just a photo of a cappuccino at Pike Place, his reminder that I should take a break, dream bigger. If you don't build something for yourself, you'll end up a footnote in someone else's story. I laughed it off, but sometimes I wondered if he was right. As I closed up the shop for the night, I swept under the bandsaw, and my broom nudged a small, tarnished key, maybe dropped years ago. I picked it up, weighed it in my palm, and caught myself staring at Dad's office above. What would I find in that locked drawer? Maybe the answer to why in this family I was always the hands and never the head. The rain was heavier than usual that fall, seeping into everything. Floorboards, beams, the walls of Ballard's old shop. The crew called me the walking blueprint. They meant it as a compliment, I think, but every invoice, every delivery slip bore Harper's name. Dad scheduled all the client meetings upstairs, always during the hours I was supposed to be on the floor. I'd get an email the night before. Please leave a technical note for the consult at 10 a.m., but never a seat at the table. There were days I checked the company website and hardly recognized the work. Projects I had spent months designing and finishing were tagged Harper Creates, with staged photos I'd taken myself, cropped so I was always absent. Even customers who wrote, "Tell Atteka I love the dovetail joints," got replies signed by Harper. One night, I stood alone in the shop, the oak table my grandfather built glowing under flickering fluorescent lights. A fresh gouge cut across the top, left by someone dragging equipment without care. My reflection was faint in the lacquer, tired eyes, rough hands, the kind of face that belonged behind the scenes. I suddenly knew I couldn't keep doing this, waiting for recognition that was never coming. The old key sat in my pocket. Tomorrow, I'd find out what they were hiding before it was too late for me to leave on my own terms. Night fell heavy over the shop, the sort of Seattle rain that seeps into your bones and blurs the world into 1,000 silent drops on glass. I walked circles across the sawdust-covered floor, shadows flickering where half the bulbs had burned out. My hand slipped into my pocket, closing around the brass key I'd found. I climbed the wooden stairs to Dad's office, each step creaking under the storm. The key slid into the bottom right drawer, clicking open with a resistance that made my heart pound. Inside was a cream-colored folder marked in Dad's careful hand. Succession Plan SP55. I opened it and froze. It wasn't just notes, it was a detailed timeline for transferring full ownership of Voss and Company to Harper on Dad's 55th birthday. My name appeared once. Facilitate technical transition. Cease employment within 6 months. Sign NDA and non-compete. In the margin, Mom had scribbled, "Reduce dependency on Atteka. Prioritize Harper's public image." The realization hit colder than the rain outside. I had never been overlooked by accident. It was deliberate, written into their plans all along. I was there to serve until Harper could shine alone. Deeper in the file, I found something sharper. An email from Elias Thorne, our biggest client. "I work with Atteka. If she leaves, I'll reconsider the contract." In thick red pen, someone had written, "Do not CC Atteka. Wait until deal closes." They had kept even that from me, Harper included, pretending it was my fault I never moved up. I photographed every page, my hands shaking. A small micro SD card slipped out of the folder. I pocketed it. Then a single line stopped me cold. Contingency PR plan in case of Atteka pushback. The truth was undeniable now. The next night, dinner at our family home was tense. The table glowed golden under the chandelier, but the food tasted like nothing. My heart thundered as I laid the folder on the oak surface. "There's something you need to see." They read the plan. Mom's fork clattered at the words. Atteka to be terminated after 6 months. Harper looked at me, cold. "You're good at what you do, but you're not the future of this company. I am. You've built your image on my work," I said, voice shaking. "Every dollar, every project, every client came from these hands." Dad muttered, "Business is business." Harper smirked. "Pretty furniture isn't enough if no one knows about it." I slid out the printed email from Elias Thorne. "He's our biggest client, and he's here for my work. Not branding, not videos. If I walk, so does he." The silence was crushing. I named projects, customers, times I had saved the company. Harper tried to laugh it off, but her voice wavered. Mom's hands trembled. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I can't do this anymore." I quit. No one moved. Mom begged. Dad snapped. Harper recorded herself at the table, narrating her own version of events. I stood, slid the SD card deeper into my pocket, and walked out into the storm. For the first time, I didn't look back. That night, I drove aimlessly through rain-soaked streets until I reached my apartment. I slid the card into my laptop. Inside were files, spreadsheets, timelines, PR memos. But the deeper I went, the worse it got. Every detail was calculated. Minimize my presence in public. Reroute every technical question to Harper for visibility. Position me as the silent technician. I listened to a recording of Dad and Harper. If Atteka pushes back, don't give her a mic. They even had a draft press release, claiming I chose hands-on work outside the family brand. I felt sick, my life's work erased before my eyes. When Finn arrived, I showed him everything. He listened quietly, arms crossed. They have nothing left to offer you except guilt. They can't hurt you anymore. The words hit hard. The grief was sharp, but lighter somehow, like a weight lifting. That night, I assembled proof. Screenshots, contracts, testimonials from clients who had thanked me by name. I emailed each one, asking for support if I left the company. The replies were overwhelming. They weren't loyal to Voss. They were loyal to me. Then came an email that felt like fate. From Laura Blackwell, founder of Blackwell Custom Interiors. Atteka, we're building a sustainable design division, and your name comes up in every conversation. Are you open to talking? I could hardly believe it. Maybe the universe was opening a window just as every door at home slammed shut. The next day, Dad called. You need to come in. Thorne is threatening to pull the contract unless you handle the Bellevue job. My answer was short. I'm not coming back. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in years. Fear still burned in my chest, but it was sharp and clean, the kind that said, finally, you're on your own side. The next morning, snow blanketed Seattle, a rare, quiet brightness. At Pike Place, Laura Blackwell cut straight to it. We want you to head up our new division, creative control, 40% equity, and the chance to build from scratch. The only condition, walk away from Voss completely. Can you do that? Yes, I said without hesitation. I'm ready. I typed my resignation that afternoon. My mother called in panic. We can offer you a share. Your father will work something out. Don't do anything rash. It's already done, I said, and hung up. For the first time, I felt free. It didn't take long for everything to fall apart without me. Dad and Harper couldn't keep up with the technical demands on the Olympic Peninsula project. Thorne canceled his contract, citing loss of confidence in leadership. Word spread, the shop floor went quiet, carpenters left, suppliers withheld shipments. Harper doubled down online, posting glossy videos accusing me of sabotage. Some people just can't handle success, she said, posing in front of half-finished cabinets. But the comments shifted. Former clients, craftsmen, even old crew tagged me, demanding the truth. Meanwhile, Finn and I worked through long nights at Blackwell, piecing together a new future. Clients lined up. Within weeks, our calendar was booked a year ahead. Harper's influence collapsed, exposed for copying my designs. The backlash was swift. I wasn't angry anymore. I felt closure. One snowy evening, I stood on the roof of Blackwell's office, looking out over Ballard. There was grief for the family I thought I had, but gratitude, too, for Finn's loyalty, Laura's faith, and every customer who trusted in my hands. News came that Voss was auctioning its assets. I went alone. Among the tools and old machines, I bid on my grandfather's chisels. Holding them again, cold, heavy, timeless, was like holding both past and future at once. That night in the new workshop, Finn found me polishing the chisel under fresh lights. You didn't lose a family, he said. You rebuilt one. He was right. Legacy wasn't staying or sacrificing. It was building, shaping, letting go when the time came. Weeks later, I returned to the Lake Washington house. The rooms were hollow, stripped of furniture. My parents sat small in the shadow of my grandfather's oak table. Harper curled silent in the corner, her defiance gone. I set the chisel box on the table. Dad's voice cracked as he apologized, admitting favoritism had gutted both business and family. "If you come back, I'll sign it all over. Help us rebuild," Mom sobbed, pleading. "She needs you, Atteka. We all need you," Harper whispered through exhaustion. "I can't do this without you." I looked at them, realizing nothing I ever did would undo the choices they made. Then I saw an envelope tucked under old receipts, my name written in my grandfather's shaky hand. Inside, his words, "Don't cling to a name. Build something worthy and let it stand in the open, no matter the rain." I placed the chisels back on the oak table. "I have a new legacy now," I said quietly, "and it isn't here." I left the tools as a reminder. Roots don't always hold a tree in place. Harper broke down. Dad slumped, his offer hollow. Mom reached for my hand, but I let it slip away. Outside, the storm felt cleansing, washing the last of my anger away. Finn waited in his battered truck. He handed me an old photo, me and him as kids, covered in sawdust. "Nothing you built was ever wasted." I slipped it into my wallet, looked back one last time at the house, then walked forward. The rain eased, clouds breaking over Lake Washington. Spring arrived with rare golden clarity in Seattle. The new Blackwell workshop hummed with pride. My designs went viral, featured in magazines and blogs. This time, my name stood safely in public, not buried beneath a family brand. Journalists told the truth. Clients and old crew shared stories of the hours we'd built together. The narrative shifted. Finally, the credit reached the right hands. Harper left Seattle, retreating to Los Angeles. My parents sold the lake house, moving quietly into the countryside with what little remained. In my workshop, my grandfather's chisel hung behind glass, the first thing you saw walking in. A reminder that the only work that matters is the kind you can sign with pride. On a bright afternoon, Finn and I raised mugs at Pike Place. "Seattle rain's just a test," he said. "The real ones come out stronger on the other side." That night, I stood by the sound as sunset turned the sky molten gold. The pain of the old story remained, but so did the strength it gave me. I realized my worth had never been in applause or titles. It was in the hands that never stopped shaping, even when no one noticed. At home, I wrote a letter to my grandfather, tucking it beneath his chisel. I thanked him for every lesson, every hard truth, every silent nod. I promised to keep building things that would last. The rain would come again. I knew that. But I welcomed it now, sure that truth, work, and the courage to walk away endure longer than any family name. Betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from family, but resilience grows strongest in its shadow. My story is proof of that.